So welcome back to my garden, and as you can see, I have begun to start planting up the new flower beds. These two pots that you see here, hopefully you saw in the video that they are bottomless. I simply took a jigsaw, they're plastic, cut the bottoms out, and I put a little compost on the bottom. Now I didn't fill them all the way up because the purpose of these two is to turn around and plant up two or one in each Russian blue sage. I believe it's called blue sage, blue steel. I'll try to put the name here. Russian sage, yeah, Russian sage is what it's called. Anyways, sorry about that, but I'll have those two in here, and they only get about 2 feet or so tall. Again, I'll put the information below if I can remember. They need a lot of free draining soil, which is something I do not have here. So for me to plant that in the ground here would be problematic at best. Again, the soil here is not really free draining. It's compacted, heavy, silty, clay, garbage soil. Hence the reason I do sort of these micro raised beds, as it were. What I simply do, and I use the no dig method if you didn't know what was going on here. So I simply turn around. If you're not familiar, the basics is you put the cardboard down, you put soil on top of the cardboard, and you plant into that soil, that compost. Really what it does, and try not to bore you too much here, but what it does is that many of you may have already done this or do this. Some of you who may not be experienced with this, I'm still learning the whole process, but essentially you don't have to till up the ground, and the whole point behind no dig is not to till up the ground, because there's all sorts of microbes and fungi and creatures and yada yada yada. Imagine your beautiful little town being run over by a 1,000-foot tall heavy-duty tiller. It would destroy everything, and it would create chaos and havoc and death, etc. That's what we're talking about here with the ground. Now, I know some of you may be saying, oh, it's fine, it's just the ground, it's just an earthworm, whatever. Yes, but the more we can preserve of the existing environment beneath our feet, the better. Instead of starting over from scratch, we're going to be starting with something, and that's the existing environment beneath our feet there. The cardboard will rot, especially down here with the heat and humidity. This will be gone by June, probably August latest, but it'll rot away fairly quickly. While it's rotting, the grass beneath it obviously dies. The grass and weeds, they die. They add actually nutrition to the ground, to the existing ground. That only provides more of a fertile environment. It provides more nutrition not only to the ground itself, but it also provides food, as it were, to the earthworms, and the earthworms run through the soil and they start doing their pooping, which only adds to the nutrition of the soil. And there's all sorts of other critters down there, from ants and microbes and bacteria, etc., 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 which all try to benefit from this. The existing compost sitting on top of the cardboard will also, because the earthworms will come up, they'll eat some of the good compost, they'll go back down, so they start dragging some of the stuff down, and they start the process that I'm talking about here. Again, if you're not familiar with no dig, or if you're not familiar with the whole idea of this, is it will take years. It's going to take years, but most plants don't need to run their roots really deep. If a plant, let's say a shrub or a tree, needs to go really deep, then yes, I can dig a hole. So I'm not a hardcore no dig person, but for instance, these mums, they don't need 24-inch deep holes. They don't need 12-inch deep holes. Their roots will probably stay within the first top, let's say 8 inches. And yes, right now they're not planted 8 inches down. That's also why they're also sort of a mound. You may have noticed that there is somewhat of a gradient. Still have to come back and mulch, which I will, but for the short term, because I will be doing further plantings in here, I'm not going to cover anything with mulch. So I'll just have to keep an eye on the temperature and water appropriately, because these roots, again, aren't sunken all that deep. These are basically brand new plants. These are plants that we had on the front stoop in pots. So they were done. It's time to plant something up there. But instead of throwing these mums out, I've planted them here, and we're going to let them grow on. Now, in the upcoming weeks and months, I will be expanding. So basically all I'll do is take my weed whacker, cut the grass down as low as possible, lay the cardboard down on top, put compost on top of that, and just continue planting. If I don't intend on planting someplace, I'm only going to put down, let's say, 2 to 3 inches of compost And then when I do decide to plant in that particular area, or I have an idea of what I'm going to plant in that particular area, I will add additional compost. Now, I've used this method in all my other flower beds. It's worked quite well. I have many things flowering, growing right now. And over the upcoming years, especially as things start maturing and the spaces get planted into more, I continue to add more compost to those areas, because the compost will break down, right? So the compost breaks down a little bit, the soil settles, again, like I said, the earthworms, they start dragging all that good nutritional stuff down into the ground. Everything just starts to sink a little bit. So if I'm planting something that requires better drainage, doesn't like really wet feet, again, I will mound up an area, plant into that mound, and then over years it will again settle, but keep throwing compost onto the beds to keep adding nutritional value to the beds, as well as to help with the drainage and plantings, etc., etc. I think I'm making sense. Am I making sense? Let me know below in the comments. In the upcoming probably month or two, the Russian sage is there's still seedlings in the greenhouse, but they will get planted out, like I said, into these 2 pots that'll be filled with potting soil to allow for that good drainage. And because they're bottomless, all that water will have some place to go when we do get torrential downpours and we get 2 inches overnight. So all that water will have some place to go. The beds will continue to expand. In fact, over in this bed here, I'm not sure if it's in shot, but over in this bed here, I've already started expanding a little bit more. And this morning I planted up some canna. I don't know if those canna, I've had the canna in the garage all winter long. Don't know if they're good anymore, but I soaked them overnight in a bucket and I planted them out this morning. We'll see if they start sprouting and growing. Bonus. I'm just going to keep, like I said, expanding out this year. I will be doing another spot behind you guys probably in the next 2 weeks or so, and that's going to be underneath the pine tree, which is mostly in shade all day, and that will be getting the foxgloves, a lot of foxgloves. There's a corner down at the end of this row which will be getting Mexican sunflower, which I have yet to start growing, so I better get moving on that. And down this way there's going to be all sorts of good stuff that I'm growing that will be building. And yeah, it's just, yeah, like I said, there's a lot of stuff that's gonna be happening this year, and a lot of pretty fun and exciting stuff. So if you haven't subscribed, please subscribe, click that bell icon to be notified when I do post a new video. If you guys have any questions or comments, please leave them below. And I think that's gonna do it for today. I'm gonna catch you on the next one. Bye-bye.